Welcome back to the Teams Insider podcast. This week I have Chris Fitzsimmons, a good friend who's now back in the UK, and he shares a wealth of knowledge around Microsoft Teams Rooms and also Teams Phone. This week we get into the whole Teams and AI conversation. So things like intelligent speaker, intelligent meeting recap, what customers are doing around Rooms and AI, and what the future holds for Teams and Rooms and AI. Really great conversation. Many thanks to Chris for the time, and also many thanks to AVI-SPL, one of the sponsors of Empowering Cloud. Really hope you enjoy the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Got a good one this week. We're going to really ad hoc it this week. Chris and I have just jumped on, and no script, no prep. We're just going to get into one of our typical conversations, but recording it, which could be dangerous. Chris, you just want to introduce yourself and give everybody an update, because you're back my side of the pond now, aren't you?
My side of the pond too, thanks. Chris Fitzsimmons here. So former UC architect for the Microsoft practice at AVI-SPL in the States, now a senior solutions architect in the EMEA UCC team, stayed with AVI-SPL. Very grateful for that. But yeah, back in the UK after 10 years living and working in the US of A.
Awesome. So slightly different role, but still heavily involved in the Microsoft sphere as far as AVI-SPL.
Yeah, all things right? Teams Room, Phone, Places, all of the above, and learning some new hats while I'm on the way here as an SA. So looking forward to a new challenge.
Awesome. So we thought we'd pick the topic of the year, which is AI, but specifically AI in the meeting room. Obviously, you just can't get away from this conversation as far as Microsoft and Copilot goes. But Chris, I'd like to get your kind of point of view of what's going on with actual customers, where the actual value is, what are you seeing happening? So where should we start?
I was thinking about this yesterday on train. There's an interesting inflection point right now. So there's a lot of customers who we're in conversations with in the UK and have been in the US as well. Frankly, it's not really different anywhere. Who are at the point now where they're expecting delivery of some of the promise, right? So there was a lot of, as always with Teams and Teams Rooms and Microsoft in general, there's a very kind of forward-looking marketing approach that paints a picture of a happy future state. And I'm not objecting to that, by the way. I think that's actually a good way to do this. Technology adoption takes a long time.
Yeah, especially when you think about enterprises and the kind of the level of time it takes to get something through in terms of them understanding it and having budget. It's a year or multi-year cycle.
You've got to, these big boats take time to change course, right? But we've done all the adjusting, and we've bought some licenses, and we've invested in some technology, and now we're like, okay, there's a couple of things from that picture that aren't quite here yet. Let's talk about that, which is good, by the way, because I think it demonstrates that the vision presented was the right one and continues to be the right one. People are interested in the features, they're interested in and excited by the capability that's been delivered in many cases and promised in some. So I think that's good news for Microsoft and for people in the Teams universe. I think there's an interesting inflection right now where we've got some very, very capable hardware. The first thing we saw was obviously the intelligent speaker category, which gave us that identity of people who were talking in a room as opposed to just on their laptop with their individual source. But that was a category of device with a certain set of capabilities. And then we saw much more recently the intelligent camera start to appear in the shape of the Yailing device, and pretty soon here, hopefully the Jabra Panacast 50. Both of those devices, in-room intelligent pieces of hardware that were doing quite a lot of work to deliver an experience around recognizing the humans in the room and all that kind of thing. And we went through the process of registering our identities and recording our voice prints and our face identity in the Teams client, and people have kind of got used to that idea to enable those core experiences. What we're about to see is the hardware almost take a step back, and I think that's very, very interesting because certainly for enterprises where they've got lots and lots of rooms, hundreds of thousands of rooms, then investing in a piece of relatively expensive hardware for each of those spaces to deliver the experience is less appealing than the idea that the platform, does the work. And we're just about to see, I think it's public preview right now, which is intelligent speaker functionality for any Teams Rooms device.
Yeah, so not relying on like those original intelligent speakers, which were really...
Well, they were quite limited too. They were basically only certified for the huddle room, and you couldn't connect two of them together. You couldn't use them with any other audio device. So you were using a speaker puck, which is cool for 3 or 4 people, and not for 13 or 14 people.
Yeah. So now Microsoft reckon the cloud technology is good enough that it doesn't matter as long as it's a reasonable and certified Teams device that has reasonable mics. That's enough of a pickup for them to then use the cloud to intelligently.
And it will only get better, right? They've been quite circumspect is the wrong word, but they've been quite clear that your mileage may vary, right, and that the quality of your transducers is going to directly affect the accuracy, shall we say, of the transcription and the accuracy of voice recognition. And if you've got a slightly older bar that's been around for 5 years and doesn't have the greatest in MEMS microphone technology inside it, then it's not going to be as good as a beam-forming ceiling tile-shaped microphone, right? They've been pretty upfront about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you said you've gone the high-end Shure multi-ceiling tile DSPs, then you're going to get better pickup, which
and our old friend
cloud's
meets
going
up
to do better with that. It makes sense.
Delivering the experience probably won't be quite as good at it as a 910 or a 920 or something. It's probably worth us talking about the experience that we keep talking about, like what actually is the user experience and what's the upside, right? What are we talking about? So, and then we can go back to the video stuff in a minute. I think the key experience from Intelligent Speaker has decided it was intelligent recap, right? The idea that, and this is why I think Microsoft is so focused on this at the moment, is essentially as a Copilot and Teams Premium unlocker, right? So with an intelligent speaker or intelligent speaker capability, Teams knows who's talking in a room, and that allows their statements to be ascribed to them in a transcript or in an intelligent recap and in AI notes and in Copilot related meeting recap. So that's really kind of vital for the realization of the potential of something like Copilot, right? Which is, I know what Tom said.
Yeah, I think that's it. And because Copilot and intelligent meeting recap even more so, which is part of Teams Premium, so you don't even need to step up to full Copilot, because those are being so well received, suddenly the room without intelligent speakers at a disadvantage. I've got 4 people in the room. If the transcript just says room said X, room said Y, that kind of breaks the value prop of intelligent meeting recap or Copilot. And I think that's a really easy value prop to understand, that if I want to have good summaries of my meetings, I'm going to need to know who in the room said what.
Yeah, agree. And also the cost of that, right? So what I found really fascinating about the BYOD, the bring your own device feature set that Microsoft introduced in Q1, was that they added that functionality to devices that were essentially BYOD devices. So if you had an intelligent speaker piece of hardware in a BYOD room, so it didn't even have a Teams Rooms compute or a Teams Rooms Pro license attached to it, you could still have intelligent recap. And I actually questioned that. I was sort of like, why are you doing that? And I had a conversation with the product group about it. It's like, this seems like it's getting dangerously close to making BYOD too good, right? You need some value in the Teams Room Pro license. They're like, it's a Copilot and an intelligent recap unlocker. We want all rooms to be available to something like intelligent recap and not just, the fancy room. We need this to be available everywhere in every meeting, not just in some meetings when you were lucky enough to be able to book the Teams room, not the BYOD space. And I totally, on reflection, that makes complete sense. But it was interesting how fast they moved towards that. And we're still right at the beginning of this.
It's worth repeating. You said it earlier that you do have to enroll your voice. So part of this is the individuals have to self-select to enroll on the Teams client, on their personal client. Obviously, the organization has to unlock that capability. And there's various.
There's quite a lot of steps to go, right? You have to turn it on the tenant. You have to enable the users via a user policy to be able to enroll. You have to have a meeting policy that says, yes, you can transcribe. And that's actually a cool change that's coming pretty soon here, which is transcribe only, which will be a nice addition rather than having to video record everything and therefore get the transcription. And then obviously once all of those things are done and you're invited to the meeting at the moment, then your voice will be compared to known voices for people that were invited and accepted, because there's a limit, and I think it's 20 at the moment of the number of voices it will actually go check against. It's not taking Tom's voice and comparing it against the 35,000 people else in the tenant who had their voice recorded too. There's a herding of cats that has to be done first.
It's setting itself up for success there, because it obviously knows the roster already. It knows who's enrolled. So it's that makes it.
And you can imagine that getting better in future, right? Because there's a couple of, let's call them edge or corner cases right now, which is that Bob wasn't invited and the meeting started. And then we realized we actually really needed Bob involved, and somebody went and knocked on his door and said, hey, can you come join the meeting? And Bob walks in and sits down. Right now, it doesn't know Bob, because if Bob was not on the meeting roster when the meeting began. Yeah. So there's room there for that to get better, right? And for that to start to get.
Yeah, it'd be great if you walked in and it started to go based on voice signature and facial rec. I think Bob has joined. Can you confirm?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting. It's almost, just thought about this. This is similar, related to the team or Copilot team, whichever way around it is, right? Which is now there's this virtual person. You can invite them to the meeting. Because come in, Copilot, come and join us. What about Bob? Bob's feeling a bit left out. So I think that's kind of interesting similarity.
And everything there from a licensing perspective, that's included in TeamStream Pro. As you say, you can do it with BYOD. So you're not needing yet to step up to Copilot. Because something I'm seeing that's causing confusion in the market is, obviously you have the Copilot personal license, but where do I need Copilot for these AI room scenarios? And it's not a direct attach. You don't attach a Copilot license to a room.
You can't license
these features come as part of either Rooms Pro is the thing that's unlocking the AI in the room. Really,
it's an interesting, because actually that's a change, wasn't it? When Teams Premium first was launched, Intelligent Recap was an exclusive for it, and then pretty quickly Intelligent Recap got added to the Copilot license, because there was obviously a bit of a, why do I need this one and this one? But I think the thing to differentiate,
if I've just bought Copilot, I want that Intelligent Recap as well. I paid you $30 for the AI
back, please. The thing the easy way to describe the difference is that Intelligent Recap is a post-fact capability, right? And Copilot is in real time. So you can literally, and I actually had this on the train the other day. This is a pretty cool Copilot story. I was on a train back from London in a team meeting with the guys in the States, and I went through a tunnel, and it didn't actually kick me out, but it basically went to you're on hold, because there was no signal on the phone. Popped out the other side of the tunnel, reconnected, and it said, would you like Copilot to catch you up? And it literally on my iPhone,
perfect use case.
Literally on my iPhone said, Ron said this and Brandon said that and Josh said the other. And I was like, that's okay. That's not me really telling it to write a SWOT analysis. That's actually a useful, really useful feature, like Copilot for meetings. I think Copilot for meetings is one of the better.
I use it mid-meeting quite a lot for, like, someone said something, can you remind me of what it is? And it's just scanning the transcript. But like you say, it's interactive, whereas Intelligent Meeting Recap is generated and static. You can't query it afterwards. You can't say, summarize everything just Chris said. It's a kind of static summary, whereas the Copilot is unlocking that.
It's really good for copy pasting to the people that weren't on the tenant that recorded the meeting too, by the way. Just there's this current standoff where we go, can I record it? No, I'm recording it. Can I record it? And then the loser gets an email.
We're seeing that. We're seeing that a lot with customers now. We always try and host the meeting with our customer calls. It's like, I want to host it because I want the summary, and they're doing the same thing. They want to host it.
You need to be able to record it on both tenants. That's my dream there, is like we just get to both have...
Yeah, you've all given consent.
Yeah, let's just record it twice. Right, I'll record it, you record it, and then we both get the benefit of it. And it saves the sharing of information problem. Could write that one down, Microsoft. Tom and I will take credit for that when it happens. So let's go. We talked about audio a lot. I think the video piece is super interesting, because it may eventually make the same migratory journey into the cloud, but I think it's going to take longer. So on the video side, the camera side, the intelligent camera capability, and I'm not going to use IntelliFrame yet because that's confusing. We'll get there. Intelligent camera capability is I've identified some people in the room and I've labeled them, right? So if Tom and I and a couple of others are sitting in a meeting room with an intelligent camera in it, and we've all registered our identities, our faces, and the tenant's got it all turned on and blah, 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 and we were invited to the meeting, then my little box that it's generated, this grid view that it generates, then has Chris's name in it and Tom's name in it. And
yeah, so for the remote party, they join, and rather than getting
the room
just
shot,
a giant view of the room and not knowing who's who, you get essentially the celebrity squares named up nicely, which is particularly useful if you're working in a big org, or you're working in different teams. Knowing who's who visually, remotely is really, really useful.
Hollywood squares, that's what I used to call them. Now I've moved back, I'm going to have to call them celebrity squares. It's different. So that's part of it. And then the other part of it, obviously, is the panorama view as well as the head. So you still get your context, right? You still get the whole room, but then you also get a kind of a more zoomed in headshot. Gives you better facial cues. It lets you see what Tom really thought, even though he's at the back of the table. And so that intelligent camera capability has that identity, but it also puts you in the roster as well, right? Don't forget that. So if you're looking at the Teams meeting roster, you actually get room name and then Tom, Chris, Bob, and Harry in that roster. And again, that's based on who's invited, who's accepted, and it's pretty clever about that. I expect we'll see more of that cleverness come into some of the meeting invitation stuff that we're seeing as well, like, because you're starting to see in-person meeting as an Outlook option, and some other, respond in person or respond as remote. That stuff's finally kind of making its way out into the field. I said I want to skip IntelliFrame, but let's go back to IntelliFrame now, because IntelliFrame is the description that Microsoft has given to the various features that I'm going to call them heads and boxes for short, right? Heads and boxes either happens on the device or it happens in the cloud.
It's tricky because Microsoft are using that, exactly. Microsoft are using that term. I think after it's still sticking, the IntelliFrame Edge is the camera vendor has the intelligence in their box, and IntelliFrame in the cloud is the cloud takes a single feed from the camera and magically cuts it up in the cloud, basically.
And so that the IntelliFrame cloud version, or the render for any not so clever, let's call it dumb camera for the moment, sorry cameras, that doesn't label you and it doesn't identify you. All it's doing is saying that's a head, a melon, as we call them in AVI-SPL. That's a melon. I'm going to put that in a box. There's another couple of melons. They're all going to get boxes. And it's pretty good at identifying head-shaped things, but it's certainly not attempting to identify whose head, right? It's just... Yeah, and it's actually a really good experience. You've got something like a rally camera, right? The good old Logitech rally cam, PTZ, sorry, showing my American there.
You're coming back.
But what it does a great job of is just cropping into the bits you care about instead of all the white space in the room that you don't care about. It gives you that view, but it certainly isn't identifying. And I've had some discussions about whether that would migrate slowly to the cloud, that naming. And the kind of the feedback I got was it's a lot harder, because essentially what the intelligent cameras are doing is getting a fairly high fidelity image of the head and then actually sending the image. So it's getting a still of my head, sending that to the cloud, and then in the cloud some image processing is being done to go, that's Chris's head or that's Tom's head, in the same way that the voice is being interpreted or identified, but it's a lot harder.
It's theoretically a similar process, though, isn't it? It just needs to be written in the cloud. The cloud could grab a still from a video stream. The resolution thing is interesting, isn't it? Because the camera has a natural
and that all of them are being sent up, right? So if you've got a 720p camera or a 1080p camera, you're getting 1080p of the room and 4 people. Now you're going to cut all those people out. You've actually got 100 pixels each. That's actually pretty difficult to run or maybe not difficult. It's harder to run an image recognition algorithm on those handful of pixels versus a whole nice 540p or whatever it's an intelligent camera's doing. But I think that's where I was thinking about like what will Teams rooms do and look like. Now, obviously I don't have any idea what Microsoft's working on, but like in my mind, more and more of that intelligence needs to be cloud-based to make it available in more and more places.
It just makes sense as well. You unify the experience cross vendor, cross device, and like you say, BYOD is increasingly, acknowledged by Microsoft as a reality, that there are lots of rooms that need that won't have clever compute units at the edge necessarily that you could do.
And we've got actually think.
Is there anything else?
Okay.
So is there anything else on the Microsoft side? The other thing I want to get your opinion on before we wrap up is the kind of multi-camera AI direction. Like that feels like a really interesting area, and that's an area where the OEMs come into play with different engines, different capabilities, which is really exciting.
I think that's fascinating, and partly because there's limited amount of information about it at the moment, and that always bugs me because I want to know all the answers immediately, and I keep getting told we don't know yet, or we're not telling you yet. Just tell me the answers. Like how many people will it? So multi-camera. Let's talk about the laptop thing first. So there's this idea that in a Teams room environment where maybe there is someone who we don't have a good shot of, because let's imagine we're sitting down on an old-fashioned 2x2 table and I'm behind Tom, so my head's obscured by this hand, but maybe my laptop has a better view of my face, and I've got my laptop open on the table. So what's going to happen is Teams is going to choose my laptop camera because it's better than the front of room shots. So it'll still do the grid view thing, right? The IntelliFrame Hollywood squares, but my Hollywood square will be populated by a different camera. The laptop camera. That's fascinating.
Yeah, which is really interesting.
Because we're about to find out how bad laptop cameras are.
I've heard a lot of people excited about that. Well, I've heard a lot of people excited about that because there's no hardware investment there. And like the reality of meetings is nearly everybody brings a laptop in. So you've all brought personal cameras in, and you're right, there's a great variance of laptop quality.
The potential is very exciting.
But also the cloud can do some AI processing on that as well. So theoretically, again, the cloud
your laptops are quite nice, effective hardware, right? Especially if it's a Copilot plus laptop, maybe it's got some smarts in it.
And it's flying, isn't it?
I think there's going to be, I have some questions about how many will it support in a room? How often is that going to work? Like how often do people actually bring their laptops? Will it change behaviors? I think there's, like we just talked about, there's a quality conversation there. And I think that goes to all of this, by the way, because it's still garbage in, garbage out, right? If you don't have good cameras and you don't have a good laptop, then there's only so much that image processing can do to make that better. So we're not getting away from the need to invest in decent quality equipment. It's just we're just discussing and changing what the equipment does.
And that's the first scenario. Then you've got these center of room cams, which initially was, one OEM, then two, then three, then four. Like it feels like a lot of people are going to this center of room model. And then you've got the idea of having multicam out.
Yeah, like choose your own. I really like the choose your own adventure stuff. And I think for me, that's the most interesting avenue, is this idea that, and so let's talk about what that means. So before we get into why I like it, the multicam announcement is that if a room is equipped with multiple video cameras, then far end participants will be able to choose which of those multiple cameras that they select to be the one that the room tile is occupied by in their team's stage. So if I'm looking at a shot of the auditorium from, I know, the back of the room camera, but actually I'm interested in the reaction of the guy who's sitting in the front row, I can switch in my desktop Teams client, say I want camera 2. And that is wicked. I love the idea that as a consumer of a call, I get to pick the user experience or of the thing that I'm interested in. That's the same with Cloud IntelliFrame, right? Which is that I do or don't like the feature or how it looks, I'll turn it on or off. And that's
what
amazing.
Do you think about picking versus having the magic AI do direction? Because I see mixed reviews on things like dynamic zooming and panning. Some people really like it, and some people are like, it's just distracting. Well, we get the same thing with the AI. Do people want to pick their angles as opposed to having the AI
there's three parts to this, isn't there? There's first of all, which is as a consumer, I would like to be in control of my own experience. And by the way, we're not all created equal, so we don't all agree with each other about what view we want. The AI element of that is good, and some people will be fine with that. I think we need a choice. I need to be able to choose whether I'm fine with the AI version of the direction.
So I could go into I'm happy with AI
auto,
direction mode,
do what you like.
The best views, or Yeah, or I'm a power user.
Yeah, or I'm in a team belonging to.
Mode.
I report to somebody who I deeply care about their opinion of, and I want to know what they think of this idea before I choose my opinion of the idea. Right? I'm interested in that.
Interesting.
I'm a big advocate for people having choices, and then we forgot about the third group of people here, which is the people in the room. And there's an awful lot of people that are like, oh, I don't know how I look in this view. And I'm like, well, okay, but this isn't really about what you think about this view. It's about whether it's useful to the individuals that you're trying to communicate with. And I think that's a fascinating debate, because we have lots of people like, I don't like the self view. I don't like that mode. It makes me look weird. I'm like, well, it's not for you. Turn it off. I mean, hide the self view if you can, because actually how you look outside the, okay, yes, it's important, but it's not as important as the person consuming the call is being able to get what they need out of it from an accessibility perspective. The other piece of this that's really, really interesting is the kind of legalities of that, right? Like, is it okay for me to choose? Do I need to have a controlled environment? Am I trying to make a produced event? And also the difference between the OEM, let's call them the OEM features and the Microsoft features, right? That's why I think Cloud IntelliFrame was so important when it came out. It was the first time that a user could switch. So if I've got a multi-camera system from Huddly or whoever, right, their intelligence isn't really exposed to the user because it's the Huddly crew.
No, it's been
the
done
Huddly crew system, for example. Really nice experience. I watched an updated version of that the other day. But because it doesn't have hooks into Teams, I can't choose my own adventure in the same way that I could do if Teams had the feature.
Yeah.
But that creates a problem because it's like, well, how do I differentiate now as an OEM if my smarts are not a unique thing? Because somebody else can override them and change.
I think there will be meaningful differences between how the OEMs implement this and how good the experiences are. And I've seen some of that. There are stark differences between the different scenarios and how quick they're choosing to cut between users, what kind of framing they're doing. So you're right. There's a dilemma there because I love the innovation on the OEM side, but I kind of want to choose a uniform experience for my users.
Yeah, I mean that comes down to Chris's 2 cents on how to pick hardware in a meeting room, which is try and find one, maybe two vendors for your entire organization so that you don't get into that room's better, I like this one more, or meetings in France are better than the ones in England because we have different cameras. Not only is that a support nightmare, but more importantly, it's a maybe not more importantly, as importantly, it's a user experience challenge. And that can become a support nightmare, which is this one's behaving weirdly. No, it's not. It's just behaving differently because it's a different vendor. That's a waste of a ticket there and another 5 minutes of time spent. So understanding the user experience, experiencing the user experience as a business owner and going, this is the one we're picking, is really important because it allows you to take control because they're not all the same. It's very easy for people to say, oh, Teams rooms are all the same, or which from a UI perspective they are, but from a camera, microphone experience of how a meeting looks and feels and sounds, they're not. And different people were going to have different views on what they want out of a room.
Definitely. Cool. So I think we've covered the audio elements of AI, which I think are arguably some of the strongest at the moment, what's happening in video and what the OEMs are doing. Chris, if people want to find out more from you or from AVI-SPL, where's
probably the AVI-SPL website, www.avi-spl.com. You can also find me in the various Discords and community channels that the teams.
We're gonna wrangle you back to the.
Yeah, I'll be at the user group on the 19th.
This side as well.
And I'll be at Comsverse and various other places over the next month as well. So come find me.
Cool. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Tom.
Appreciate it.